What happened to cause such devastation? Meteorologist Jim Vanderswan was tracking the Pacific storm system that rolled in with a vengeance on Friday, March 10, 1995.
One of the great marvels with weather forecasting are the tools we use to try to predict what Mother Nature is going to do. Satellite imagery, radar, surface and upper air observations all give us a little bit of a feel for what's really going on. But you've got to kind of go back to the fundamentals once in a while on what's called the hydrological cycle. We figure on evaporation of water vapor in the atmosphere. That gets moved downstream by the winds. Condensation is the next step in the cycle that allows clouds to be formed. And then, of course, precipitation is what ultimately falls back to Earth that replenishes our water supply and makes it possible to live on the planet. Well, the one element that Mother Nature left out of that equation is distribution. As a result, we don't always get the same amount of rain every year as we would like. California, of course, has experienced floods before, but we are most recent in our memory with drought years. 5 years, to be exact, of below normal rainfalls every winter. So we simply were not accustomed to the fact that there could possibly be an awful lot of rain. And up until December '94, there wasn't a whole lot, but January, of course, the faucet opened and we saw an awful lot of rain in California. Then it quieted down for a little while in February, and then March it picked up again. Well, combine that with the fact that what happens is when you have 5 drought years, you've got some pretty thirsty soil. All the rain that falls gets absorbed. And that's what was the case in January. Although in the Carmel Valley, of course, we had too much rain too fast, and that still caused the river to go over the banks. But after all the rain, much like when Mom and Dad told you to save your pennies because they'll add up to a lot of dollars, same thing happened in nature. More and more rain continued to pile up to the point that the soil could no longer hold it. Then it simply runs off, taking the path of least resistance, which ultimately ends up being the nearest river. And as a result, it starts to fill up rather quickly. Now, we have another complicated situation in that people were not really feeling like they could be threatened by floodwaters after 5 years of drought. It's a little tough to convince folks that when we say a flood watch is in effect or a flood warning is in effect, that you better take it seriously. The National Weather Service, in combination with the emergency services people in Santa Cruz and Monterey County, are monitoring river gauges and remote rainfall gauges up in the mountains. That's typically where we get the heaviest rain because the moisture is lifted up by the mountain range and that really gets things spinning. So while it might be just a few showers over the valleys, it could be raining quite heavily over the mountains. And that's ultimately what led to the demise of the Pajaro River. Much like if you were to stand on top of a sloped driveway with a bucket of water or a hose and you let a little trickle of that water spill onto the driveway, you could actually watch that water slowly make its way down the driveway into the gutter. It's going to take it a little while. Well, on a much larger scale, that's what we're dealing with in nature. Heavy rains over the mountains will take a while to work their way down into the river and then ultimately downstream toward the ocean. And that's probably what fooled more people than anything else. Still in all, with the use of some of this technology, we were able to get a pretty good handle on the cumulative effect of the rain as well as the big storm that came in at that point in March. And the flood warnings eventually went out after flood watches were first posted. Still, some folks weren't quite convinced that it could happen to them. Heavy rains that started on Friday continued to cause the river to go up from about 20 feet early in the morning to over 33 feet by midnight Friday night. And that's where the problem started. And the flood came. And with all that water and all that weight and the potential for power to erode the levees, it broke a few of those, which complicated the matter even more. So it's one of those phenomena in nature that just about everybody in every part of the world has to go through some time or another. Perhaps the best thing to do is to heed the warnings. You can't fool Mother Nature.